Hi students, this is Umamageshwari, Assistant Professor, Department of English from St. Joseph's College of Arts and Science, Cuddalore. This video is for the paper British Poetry. In this video, we are going to analyze the poem A Song for St. Cecilia'S Day written by John Dryden. Let's brief about the author. John Dryden, who was born on 19th August 1631 and died on 12th May 1700, was an English poet, literary critic, translator, and playwright who in 1668 was appointed England's first poet laureate. Sir Walter Scott called him Glorious John. He has written many poems, and Macflecknoe was his most celebrated one. Theme of the poem. John Dryden wrote this ode entitled A Song for St. Cecilia'S Day to describe the power of music. This ode was designed for performance on the festival in 1687 by a newly formed musicians in London. The 22nd of November is celebrated as St. Cecilia'S Day in her memory. Saint Cecilia was a pious Christian lady who sacrificed her life in Rome in the year 230 AD. She is adored as a saint and patron of music. The major theme is music's ability to play with man's emotions. Let's see the summary. The central idea of the poem is that the whole universe is a stage. It was created by the power of music and will be dissolved by the music of the last trumpet. The music thus connects the two ends of creation and destruction. It also suggests that the truth of harmony is an essential quality of the universal frame. Throughout the poem, Dryden describes the creation of world through music. Let's discuss the structure of the poem. A Song for St. Cecilia'S Day is separated into 8 stanzas. The first 7 verses are sung by a single voice, while the last stanza is meant for the grand chorus. This poem does not have a specific rhyming pattern. There is no metrical pattern. This poem follows the manner of Pindaric ode. Let's analyze the poem. First stanza. From heavenly harmony, this universal frame began, when nature underneath a heap of jarring atoms lay and could not heave her head. The tuneful voice was heard from high, arise, a more than dead, then cold and hot, and moist and dry, in order to their stations leap, and music's power obey, from harmony, from heavenly. So, the first stanza, the poet describes that the world was created by music. According to Dryden, this harmony, supervised by God, lies in the universe. The universe frame began with this harmony when nature was nothing but a heap of jarring atoms. It seems Dryden is alluding to the Newton's model of the universe. He personifies nature and says nature could not heave her head higher after its creation. Then suddenly she heard a tuneful voice from heaven. The sound raised from her immobile state like a dead person. According to the speaker, this music eventuated the seasonal cycle on earth. Through all the compass of the musical notes, the earth revolved and the diapason closed full in man. Diapason means a grand swelling burst of harmony. Here the reference is made to the complete compass of the heavenly music. Let's move on to the second stanza. What passion cannot music raise and quill? When Jubal struck the chorded shell, His listening brethren stood around, and wondering on their faces fell to worship that celestial sound. Less than a god, they thought there could not dwell within the hollow of that shell that spoke so sweetly and so well. What passion cannot music rise and quill? In the second stanza, the poetic persona refers to the power of music. He says, music can raise and quell extreme passion. When Jubal struck the chorded shell, his brethren stood around him wondering about his composition. On their faces there was an awe-inspiring look. It seems to the speaker that they were worshipping that celestial sound coming from Jubal's shell. In the Bible, Jubal is described as the ancestor of all who played the harp and flute. He played the kinnor, also known as the harp, and the agap, Hebrew alternative for the flute. Let's analyze stanza 3. The trumpet's loud clangor excites us to arms with shrill notes of anger and mortal alarms. The double, double, double beat of the thundering drum cries, "Shriek, the foes come! Charge, charge, it's too late to retreat." In the stanza 3, Dryden presents the imagery of soldiers getting ready for a battle. The clangor of the trumpet also imitates the mood of the anger. In the third stanza revolves around the musical instruments. Their sounds heighten the mood of the poem. Let's discuss the stanza 4. The soft complaining flute in dying notes discovers the woes of hopeless lovers, whose dirge is whispered by the warbling lute. Stanza 4. In the stanza 4, Dryden uses auditory imagery throughout this piece for depicting the sounds of the instrument mentioned by him. Let's move on to the stanza 5. Sharp violins proclaim their jealous pangs and desperation, fury, frantic indignation, depth of pains, and height of passion for the fair, disdainful dame. The stanza 5 discusses hearing the sound of the flute, the sharp violins proclaim their jealous pangs. It seems to the speaker the violin is desperate to express the player's fury and frantic indignation. When the speaker hears its sound, the sound reflects the musician's depth of pain and height of passion for the fair, disdainful dame. So, the violin player seems to be a victim of unrequited love. Move on to the next stanza, stanza 6. But oh, what art can teach, what human voice can reach, the sacred organ's prize, notes inspiring holy love, notes that wing their heavenly to mend the choirs above. In the stanza 6, according to the poet, when the speaker hears its sound, the sound reflects the musician's depth of pain and height of passion for the fair and disdainful dame. So the violin player seems to be a victim of unrequited love. The human voice cannot reach the height of the sacred organ's price. None can teach this art to a human being unless the user has some divine inspiration or a heavenly spirit. The reference is to Saint Cecilia, who was inspired by heaven. Her notes inspired holy love in humans. Not only that, her composition rose higher to heaven. Let's move on to stanza 7. Orpheus could lead the savage race, and trees unrooted left their place. Sequacious of the lyre, but bright Celia raised the wonder higher when to her organ vocal breath was given. An angel heard and straight appeared, mistaking earth for heaven. In the stanza 7, Orpheus, a musician, poet, and prophet in Greek mythology, was another figure alluded to in this poem. He could play the lute in such a manner that made the savage race of Greece obey and respect him. His music could inspire not only humans but also nature responds to it. It means that he perfected the lyre. Cecilia raised the wonder higher than Orpheus when she gave her vocal breath. Let's discuss the final grand chorus. As from the power of sacred lays, the spheres began to move and sung the great Creator's praise to all the blessed above. So when the last and dreadful hour this crumbling pageant shall devour, the trumpet shall be heard on high, the dead shall live, the living die, and music shall untune the sky. In the last stanza, which is a grand chorus, Dryden says, from the power of Cecilia's sacred lays, the spheres began to move. Her music had the power to infuse life into all the inanimate objects. Hearing her organ, they came into life and sang the great Creator's praise. They sang for all the blessed angels residing in heaven. When the last and dreadful hour, a metaphorical reference to death, came, the crumbling pageant shall devour the creation, the trumpet shall be heard in heaven, those who have died will come to life, and the living die. Along with that, her music will untune the sky. In this way, the poet refers to the mightiness of Cecilia's divine music, comparable to the power of God. Hence, the poem Song for St. Cecilia's Day, written by John Dryden in 1687 to celebrate the feast day of St. Cecilia, the patron saint of music. The poem is a hymn to music and its ability to move the soul and elevate the spirit. It describes music as a divine art that was given to mankind by the gods to bring joy and harmony to the world. The poem opens with a description of the power of music to soothe the savage breast and calm the troubled mind. Dryden then goes on to praise the beauty and complexity of music and its ability to express a wide range of emotions, from joy and love to sorrow and despair. Throughout the poem, Dryden draws upon classical mythology and references to ancient Greek and Roman gods and goddesses to underscore the divine origins of music. He also pays tribute to famous composers of his time, such as Handel, Purcell, who continued the tradition of creating beautiful music that uplifts the soul. In the final stanza, Dryden asks Saint Cecilia to bless the musicians and composers of the world and to inspire them to create works. Thank you.